Oh, I know what you're thinking. You saw that this session was going to be about the state and shape of the tourism economy here in Texas, and you're trying to reconcile that with the fact that someone from Irving is who's going to talk about it. Because when you think Irving, tourism isn't exactly top of mind, and that's okay. I know. I understand. I'm Maura Gass, the executive director of the Irving Convention and Visitors Bureau. I'm a former chair of what is now Destinations International, the Association for Tourism and Destination Professionals around the world. I chair its accreditation program, and I'm a faculty member for its certification program. Prior to that, I worked for the Dallas Times-Herald, Joske's department stores in both San Antonio and Dallas, and the San Angelo Standard-Times. I've been around more than a few blocks. For those of you who don't know what a Convention and Visitors Bureau is, there's one of us in almost every community. We're evangelists, constantly preaching the gospel of the strengths of our communities to people everywhere. We bring strangers to our towns, other people's money, who pay taxes and whose children we don't have to school and who hopefully will never need the other services the taxes they pay support, like hospitals or police or fire. Most of us are funded primarily with local hotel occupancy taxes, so visitors pay for what we do and our communities benefit because of it. A year ago, Irving had a tourism economy of 23,148 jobs, about 10% of the city's population. As the headquarters of headquarters, we had 12,000 hotel rooms and another 3,000 in some phase of development or construction. We had one of the highest hotel occupancy rates in the state and in the country, and one of the strongest and steadiest average daily rates. And the biggest reason for much of that strength came from business travel. Travel driven primarily by the many, many corporations that call Irving home, and by the strength and convenience of the entire DFW area. Independent business travelers, corporate meetings and events, things like product launches or pharma training or client support. Sustained by the strength of business travel over the years, Irving also has been vulnerable to its cycles. So, for the past 10 years, we've been adding the product that would drive demand when we needed it most. Weekends all year long and during the summer and holiday seasons, and that would be more resilient to traditional economic cycles. We thought we were prepared for just about anything. We survived SARS, 9/11, the dot-com bust, and the Great Recession. But nothing prepared us for 2020. I was sitting in a mandated cybersecurity class the first week of March, and my phone began blowing up as events were canceling at hotels and the convention center. Our industry forces briefly rallied to raise the "we have to keep traveling" flag, until we realized that was actually deadly, and travel had to stop. And stop it did to a screeching halt almost overnight. Everywhere. As did every economy. Overnight. Everywhere. Everything we all did and counted on was gone. No restaurants, no meetings, no gatherings, no galleries, no exhibits, no concerts, no cash in the registers. Convention and visitor bureaus were birthed in Detroit in 1896 as a means for the city to find its way to recover from the panic of 1893, something that looked a lot like the Great Recession. Civic leaders believed that selling their city through attracting conventions was the way out. If people could come and see how wonderful Detroit was, those people would see the advantage of locating their firms and companies there, thus stabilizing Detroit's revenues and creating jobs and long-term stability. There actually was a convention in Detroit that led to the automotive industry making its home there. The Iowa-based Packards attended a convention in Detroit and were so impressed, they moved their factory. Visitors have allowed our communities to stabilize on the backs of other people's money, but they also allow our communities to rebuild too. After the fire of 1871, Chicago rebuilt with the nation's first permanent exhibit hall, serving as convention center, exhibition hall, and opera house. In 1955, Las Vegas was trying to map out a plan to keep the growth growing from a World War II boom due to a gunnery school there. As the war ended, they decided to build a world-class convention facility that would raise occupancy midweek and during the slow tourism months, and that would market the area. In the 1980s, urban renewal became a priority, as downtown cores had deteriorated from decades of urban flight. Build a convention center and you have an anchor for redevelopment of an inner city. You have a magnet to attract hotels and restaurants and other industry to reinvent a decaying area. You provide employment during construction and afterwards. And as you look around the vast landscape of Texas today, a lot has happened on the back of visitors, all with bigger picture goals of community strength and stability. Arts venues, museums, stadiums, ballparks, convention centers, hotels. Things that enhance and sustain our Texas quality of life. Things that, because they exist, add to the success of tens of thousands of small businesses in settings rural and urban, because visitor spending, other people's money, sustains them. Places like restaurants and boutiques and natural wonders and quirky attractions, things that support our quality of life, which helps maintain our state income tax-free way of life, which has allowed the Texas miracle to occur. So many of these quality of life elements require visitors to keep coming, not just to keep them full and occupied, but, just as importantly, to pay off the debt that got them built. There's $350 million worth of projects in Irving alone relying on hotel occupancy taxes for debt payments. Scanning the Dallas-Fort Worth landscape, that number now becomes closer to $2 billion with a B. Hotel taxes have become a vitally important tool to make certain things happen in our communities that make them visible and viable. But if hotel taxes aren't being generated, then our community's general funds have to make the difference up, which means other things don't get to happen. Conventions don't just happen to fall into town at the time there just happen to be a hole on the calendar. There's competition every single time they're picking a place. We can't afford to give anyone reasons to exclude Texas. Given the choice between the known and the unknown, most people choose the known. And for most of us, being known doesn't come automatically, nor easily, and not without the resources of strategy, capital, and cash. 2020 became the worst year on record for hotels and inns, restaurants and coffee shops, concert halls and street musicians, professional sports and pickup leagues, corporate America and entrepreneurs, for florists and sign makers and dry cleaners and uniform makers, for busboys and chefs, for custodians and baggage handlers, for housekeepers and security officers, for concierges and ushers, for baristas and bakers. Today, our occupancy rates have dropped from the mid-70s to the mid-30s. So many places in Texas elsewhere are still in the single digits or teens. Our commercial office buildings, whose tenants drive so much of our economic activity, have technically maintained their vacancy rates, but very few people have been able to return to work, and may not until next year. Projections for the hotel sector are that occupancy may return by 2022, but it will take until late 23 or early 24 for rate to catch up. 50% of restaurants don't think they'll still be in business by this summer. And this isn't unique to Irving. If my people don't keep working, don't keep smiling and dialing for prospects and social media posting to drive future demand and interest in bookings, then the hotel taxes won't be there to sustain our debt obligations. And the other people's money won't be there to go into the pockets of our locals. We can't make people travel right now. Only the vaccine plus safe harbor is going to make that happen. But what we can do right now is to keep our communities visible so that we can build the pipelines that make our communities viable. We have to keep being able to sell and market in order to keep our community sold and marketable. Places with expansive outdoor spaces are seeing recovery right now for leisure travel, as are great staycation opportunities. People are very tired of their own four walls. And here in Texas, sporting events in particular are continuing. But other categories of travelers will be back, and meetings and conventions will be back, even though they'll have changed. The demise of face-to-face has been rumored forever. It's fax machines, it's WebEx, and 9 months ago it became this. We've had no choice these last months to do anything other than meet digitally and to do whatever any of us does for work remotely. And it's no way to start or build a business relationship. It doesn't replace what happens when human beings interact for real, when the power of brainstorming isn't interrupted by frozen video feeds and muted mics. When a chance encounter in a hotel elevator or on a bus to the opening reception or on a trade show floor results in, well, real results. While certain learning certainly can be done online, the dynamics that occur when inspiration and intellectual curiosity collide don't work in a chat box. When visitors come to Irving, it's not just good for hotels and restaurants and airlines and rental car agencies. Because of visitor spending, there's an extra $61 million of taxes generated for our city's bottom line. Wherever any of you lives or works, your community is better and stronger because of what visitors make possible. And we've got a long way to go to get to true recovery. But the recovery of this very horizontal industry will be critical to the recovery of all of Texas. We all now know the hard way what happens when the visitor economy stops. Everything that matters to us in our local community stops too. In this globalized world, we are competing with every community everywhere for our share of visibility, our share of consumers, our share of investment. For Irving and Texas to continue to compete successfully, to keep the Texas miracle going, we need to keep doing what we do to make sure that people know all the good things about us so that they want to be here too. This is our charge for all the common good, so let's not let it stop again. Thank you.